Banlist, it's I Held Gear, and this is my Rose Dragon deck profile for post-May Banlist. The Banlist giveth and the Banlist taketh away from this deck. And since I was in the process of testing for the spring profile, summer checklist drops, and you know what? We're going to do it for this one as well. Like, sub, and bell, and let's count the cards. Alright then, starting things off with the main deck. We have to thank our Based and Sword Soul community for having only one Red Rose Dragon now. Thanks, guys! When sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can Stratos a Rose Dragon from your deck of a different name. And if that synchro monster is a plant or Black Rose Dragon, you can add Frozen Rose from your deck to your hand. Let's just be real. Not many people are going to be playing Blooming of the Darkest Rose. So you're going to get Frozen Rose out of here. And thanks to these updates, I can't play two of all of my Rose Dragons anymore. Speaking of Rose Dragons, we got 2 copies of the extender, White Rose Dragon. It doesn't matter if you normal summon this card or if you have a plant or Rose Dragon, plant or dragon tuner. You can always special summon this from your hand. It is your extender either way. And if it is sent to the graveyard for synchro material, you can send a level 4 higher plant monster from deck to graveyard, which we do for a couple of plants in the deck. I really do want to update this deck once a certain card comes down in price, because that's hell. 3 copies of Little Miss Rock's Rose Dragon. This is the one who makes the most important plays. On summon, she lets you add a card that lists Black Rose Dragon in its text from deck to your hand besides herself, and even recurs herself from graveyard. Alright. If a Rose Dragon or plant monster is destroyed by battle or card effect. I used to play 2 of this, bumped her up to 3, and it's an important thing. Next up, I got 1 Blood Rose Witch, because Scooby-Doo should not be allowed to name dual monster cards. This will always be the Witch of the Blood Rose. If it's the only card you have, you can tribute this card and then add a Witch of the Black Rose from deck to hand. Then normal summon Witch of the Black Rose after you've placed a level 3 or lower plant monster on the top of your deck, which plays very well into the Black Rose Witch, who on summon, if it's the on summon and it's the only card you control, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a monster, you add it to your hand. Otherwise, send it to the graveyard and destroy this witch. And there are a couple of cards you can go into with it on this one. Rose Girl is one of those options. And Rose Girl being a wet spelled O-E-T, because it's the Hispanic version of it, means 1 effect a turn. If a plant monster you control is sent to the graveyard outside of the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand, or if a plant monster is on your field while this card is in your graveyard, you can recur it, which is great. Rose Girl is another level 3 plant monster that you can play. When added to your hand by the effect of a spell, trap, or monster, you can special summon it, which is actually pretty good. I know some people like to also play the card Rose Princess, which you can do. So keep that in mind as you go through your selections here. Obviously, we got to go with the triple Lone Fire Blossom package. All plant duelists know just how good this card is. I don't need to explain it to you. Dark Rose Fairy is one of your other extenders if you have a tuner special summon, which is actually really niche. She doesn't come up often, but Dark Rose Fairy plus Red Rose Dragon plus White Rose Dragon equals Trishu. I run a small Plant engine of Darlingtonia Cobra, Ophrys Scorpio, and Spinodia Naya. You already know what these guys do, so I'm going to explain to you about Spiny here. When Spinodia Naya is summoned, it places a counter on one of your opponent's monsters, and if it's a level higher than 2, it changes the level to 2. Then, if this card destroys a monster by battle whose level is lower than itself, which is 4, it special summons a Plant monster from your deck. One of the things I like to do with this is I'll have Spinodia Naya on my field, put the counter on my opponent's monster, lowering the level, swing at it during the battle phase. And when I do, I special summon the Ophrys Scorpio, pitch a monster up for Ophrys Scorpio, and then pull Darlingtonia Cobra and grab Fusion, which in this case would be Super Poly. If there are any other monsters on the field that are actually lower in stats for these two guys to hit, I'll swing at them with that, then play Super Poly, pitch a card, and fuse, and swing with the Fusion summon, which all of this is taking place in the battle phase, and it's just so glorious. Destrudo! Welcome back. It's been a while since I've had this in the plant deck. Spore, we know how good Spore is. Destrudo, I don't need to tell you how good this card is. It's been on and off the ban list. And of course the World Carrier Champion to dump in the graveyard, ending up the monsters. Spell game. We already know what we're using Called by the Grave for. Black Garden is a good one of. You only need one copy of this. One of the Synchro monsters actually searched this card out. It halves the attack of all monsters summoned while this card is on the field, except by its own effect. It special summons a Rose token to the opponent's field. You probably won't ever get rid of this and all the plant monsters to special summon a plant monster, so I only tell you the effects that you'll use. 2 White Rose Cloister. This is the other field spell that you're going to use. It actually plays as an enabler if you control no monsters to special summon a Rose Dragon or plant monster. And yeah, that's good. Now if you want to roll the dice, you can, before you draw, declare a card type, and if you call it right, either monster, spell, or trap, Synchro monsters gain 1,000 attack points for the turn. Triple Basil Rose Shoot. This helps us special summon Rose Dragons, either from hand or graveyard, in defense position. Combos well with the Rocks Rose Dragon. It's one of 2 cards you actually pull with Rocks Rose Dragon. And if it's set and destroyed, you can special summon a wow, what is this? A Rose Dragon or a monster specific, excuse me. I am going too fast and it hurts. If it's set and destroyed, you can special summon a Black Rose Dragon or a card that lists it from banishment or graveyard. Each effect is once per turn. The Frozen Roses that I talked about with the Red Rose Dragon. Again, you're not going to use Blooming of the Darkest Rose. Depending on the monster you tribute, you get two effects. If you tribute a plant, at the end of your turn, you draw 2 cards and discard 1. So it's like a low-rent, graceful charity. If it's a non-plant, you rota a level 4 lower plant to your hand. This is an oat, so keep that in mind. Oat meaning 1 activation a turn. Duster for the back row. Lightning Vortex. I have actually tested this with Raigeki. One of the things I wanted to talk about, saying because I was going to switch this out with Raigeki, but the discard to take like a card that's a brick in your hand just to wipe your opponent's monsters has its uses. 2 Allures of Darkness, it's draw power, and if you do manage to pull the Black Rose Witch, you can just banish it from your hand to keep your hand in the hand safe. The fusion engine that I use for Predaplant Darlingtonia Cobra. If you don't want to use ultra polymerization, you can always go instant fusion and play the instant fusion route, especially with that new Predaplant level 5 fusion monster. But keep the super poly. And to those of you who don't know about ultra poly, it is also spell speed 4 like super poly. You pay 2 racks, you fusion summon, then you banish it, target the fusion monster you summon, special summon the fusion materials from the graveyard with their effects negated. We know about these cards, we know what we're doing with those. And then, because most of this Rose Dragon deck is plant, Wall of Thorns. It's essentially Mirror Force if you control a plant monster and your opponent attacks a plant monster. That's going to take care of the main deck. And now we get into the extra deck, folks. Starting it off with the Lady of the Hour. 2 copies of Black Rose Dragon. I do like the 2nd edition from Maximum Gold 2. On Synchro Summon, she can nuke the field. And if you banish a plant monster, she can target one of your opponent's defense position monsters, switch it to attack position, and drain it of all of its attack points. Very useful stuff. Very useful stuff indeed. I have 1 copy of the member of the family that isn't considered a Rose Dragon, and that's Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. Good for bouncing stuff. Blood Rose Dragon, the upgraded Black Rose Dragon. On Synchro Summon, she banishes all cards in each of the graveyards. Yours, your opponent's. And in many cases, your opponent does not have an answer for this. Also, if you Synchro Summon the Blood Rose Dragon using a Black Rose Dragon, you can then nuke every other card on the field. She even has a quick effect when your opponent activates a card effect that negates that card, bounces the Blood Rose Dragon to the extra deck, and you summon a Black Rose Dragon, which is the reason why we play 2 of them in this deck. A Garden Rose Maiden. This is our Black Garden Searcher. Sure, that's all we really care about. That and, of course, recurring the Rose Dragons when you banish this card from your graveyard, or a Dragon Synchro monster that's in your graveyard. Each effect is once per turn. 1 Garden Rose Flora. This one destroys field spells, but it also acts as a Synchro Tuner Stepping Stone when we go into another monster in our extra deck. Splendid Rose. I really like this card. I really do like this card. This one can actually banish a plant monster in your graveyard to have the attack of a face-up monster your opponent controls. Then, if it battles a monster, you can banish another plant monster from your graveyard, and Splendid Rose can swing again, but her attack is halved for the turn. Crystal Ring is why we use Garden Rose Flora as a synchro tuner to step into when we go into our wonderful, wonderful plays. Trishu! Trishu! I will always have love for Trishu. Now the fusions that I run, Predaplant, Chimera Flesia, and of course the Super Poly Target, Starving Venom. You know how good Starving Venom is. Predaplant Chimera Flesia can once per turn banish a monster whose level is equal to or lower than itself, which is a 7. And during attack declaration, Predaplant Chimera Flesia, excuse me, I was fighting back a sneeze there. Should anything try to swing at Chimera Flesia, it can steal 1,000 attack points from where the attack targets. And when it leaves the field, it gets you a fusion spell. So, best case scenario is you're not losing out on your fusion resources with Chimera Flesia. I do like playing Crossroads Dragon in here. It acts as a synchro summon. I mean, when you tribute this card and a plant monster. If monsters are destroyed that you control by a card effect while this card is in your graveyard outside of the damage step, you can banish this card, special summon a Rose Dragon monster from your graveyard. Each effect is once per turn. So good to have Needle Fiber in this deck. It just really is. I play a lot of synchro monsters, so the synchro boost from Cross Sheep is very useful. And last but not least, we have the one lone Aromatherapy Jasmine, which is going up in price. I last checked that this was 10 bucks. So if you're planning on getting it for plant combo, you might want to get so now. Alright, before I leave you guys with this deck profile, I want to talk about one of the things that people commonly ask me when I play this deck, and it revolves around the Rose Witches. Why do you play the Rose Witches in your deck? Well, this is actually one of your combo lines. So you'll summon your Rose Witch, your Blood Rose Witch, you'll tribute this, you'll add this to your hand, and then one of the many level 3 monsters, or level 3 monsters that you'll go into. In this case, we'll take Rose Fairy. So, this is stacked on top of your deck, and you normal summon this. You will draw and show Rose Fairy to your opponent. And since a monster effect actually drew Rose Fairy, you can special summon her in defense position. Then you can link these two away for Needle Fiber. Needle Fiber will get you a level 3 tuner with its effects negated. So you can go into Red Rose Dragon, or you can go into your Rose Girl. Where did I put my Rose Girls? So you can go into either Rose Girl or Red Rose Dragon. And the good thing about it is if you go into Red Rose Dragon and you have a White Rose Dragon on your field, you can then take these, synchro summon into Black Rose Dragon, which gets you at least a Chain Link 2 to either, well, to pitch, for obviously, you're going to pitch a plant off of White Rose Dragon. So you can pitch World Caratweight Champion in your graveyard. And then if you need to, nuke the board. Remember, because you sent Red Rose Dragon special summon Red Rose Dragon off of Beetle Fiber, you won't be able to Stratos for the turn. And that's pretty much what I wanted to show you guys for the Rose Dragon deck. Hope you have enjoyed it. Remember to like, sub, and bell. More deck profiles are on the way. But for now, I take my goose from the oven and my cards to the box, because I'm done. Bye-bye, everybody.